We don't, we just don't want to be always in this hand clapping thing, foot stomping, hand clapping, and running in a circle, and think that that's a problem solver. It is not. The record shows that it is not. So every time any black people talk to each other, it should be with the purpose of being in an educative mode, meaning problem solving. If you just want to put a definition for education, what's the definition of education? Problem solving. That's it. Now, what's the biggest problem you're looking at? This argument about what color somebody is and what that's supposed to mean. Okay, let's solve it. End of story. How can we go about solving it today before 5 o'clock, wherever we happen to be on the planet? How about that as an agenda? Rather than just, let's figure out another way to have a hand clapping session. Everybody, see, we always use another cliche. Black people got to get together. Black people got to get together. Black people got to get together. Black people get together all the time. It's what you do when you get together. What about that? Well, we can clap our hands, and we can sing some songs, and we can feel good. And we might do a little snorting and do a little shooting up. And do a little drinking. To help it along while we're doing it. And in that way, when we fall down exhausted and we get up again, we'll feel a little better about the problems that are still facing us. We need to get out of that mode forever. Everything that we think, say, and do should be scientific about doing what? Solving problems. Right. That should be the character. That should be something that when a person sees a black person, they say, here comes a problem solver, not a problem maker, which is what we have a reputation for being. Problem solver, not a problem maker. That's what a black person by definition is in this way that we should be thinking here in 2016. This is January. We should get on that kick. When you see a black person coming, here comes a problem solver, not a problem maker. How about that? Try that on for size. Start thinking of ourselves. Look at ourselves in the mirror and say, I'm a black person. Now, does that mean that I'm just black? Hooray for that? Let's praise it? No, that's supposed to mean something that has depth to it. And that depth should be, I'm looking at a problem solver, not a problem maker. You got a problem? Let's talk about it. Talk about that with me. I'm a black person. Black person, by definition, is problem solver, not problem maker. We eliminate problems in the most constructive manner. That's what all of us should be known for. Now, if we're talking about Dr. Welson's legacy, rather than focusing on Dr. Welson personality, focus on what she was trying to do.
All right. All right, Chris, you might, I don't know if you want to get your mute off mic. You get that. Yeah, so we're on Instagram as well. Welcome, family. Thanks for checking us out. Appreciate you coming through. Yeah, so we are here doing our thing. That was Neely Fuller. If people aren't familiar with Neely Fuller. Yeah, are you a problem solver? Are you a problem maker? There's a lot of Twitter going on right now between people who are Black American descendants, and it's distracting. So what we're trying to do over here in the Mass Media Group is be problem solvers. And today we're actually going to be talking about the eligibility thing that's going on right now, and actually create a resolution and some call to action that we can do. And before we do that, though, I wanted to see if we could talk about the current judge, the Supreme Court pick from Biden. If we want to go into it, can you mind to pull up the Black History? Yeah, this, in my opinion, should have been the first Supreme Court judge, Black woman, Constance Baker Motley. I think she worked with Thurgood Marshall back in the day. If you haven't had a chance, go to our ATM page. We do have her Black History icon of the month up there that we celebrated and commemorated this sister. But yeah, currently, who's the I always mess up her name, fam. I'm not even gonna lie. What's the sister's name?
We call it KB. Ketanji Brown. Oh, I guess I'm on mute. Do I take off mute? I can hear myself. Can y'all hear me?
No, we can't hear you. Or they can't hear you. Yeah, you gotta take yourself off mute.
All right, so we've got Ketanji Brown. Can we call her KB?
Yeah, KB, I guess.
All right, so KB, President Joe Biden on Friday nominated federal appellate judge Ketanji Brown, KB Jackson, to become the first Black woman to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court, saying it was time for America's top judicial body to reflect the full talents and greatness of our nation.
Yep. I don't know if with Ketanji Brown, like, if this is the greatest pick. I think there was some Supreme Court ruling that she had. No, it wasn't Supreme Court, family. I don't know if anybody in the chat can remember the ruling that it was. It was through one of those. Who was it? I can't. Family, if anybody in the chat remember who that big company that sued? There was like Lockheed. Yeah, there you go. Lockheed. You're on mute, Kim.
Yeah, Lockheed Martin. She blocked the settlement of Black workers, racism. So there was that, and I believe it was $22.5 million, and also blocked them being able to get discovery to help their case.
Yeah. I don't know, Chris, is there something that you want to say about that?
Yeah, actually, so, well, first of all, if you think about the pick, and first of all, welcome everybody in the chat. I see everybody in the chat. What's going on the YouTube, on the IG? I see you too. We are double live streaming right now. So big shout out to the IG family. Also big shout out to the YouTube family. What's going on in the comments? Make yourself known. Say what's up. Say hello. Welcome. Happy Sunday. All that good stuff. So we're gonna talk obviously about the California Reparations Task Force hearings and meetings that happened this week and recap it, getting it started off with a good conversation though around the most recent Supreme Court pick. And I haven't put too much attention and energy into this so far yet. And I know the pick really just happened like in the last 24, 48 hours. I'm interested because there's a connection also between what happens at the Supreme Court and what happens with our reparations too, right? That was a big part of even what we heard this week at the California Reparations Task Force hearings about like how would a reparations claim be handled by a California Supreme Court and then also a potentially federal Supreme Court. So it matters who's on the Supreme Court for sure. And this pick, Ketanji Brown Jackson, is going to replace Stephen Breyer, Justice Stephen Breyer, who is retiring from the Supreme Court. I believe he's like in his 80s or something. He's retiring from the Supreme Court. I think after he says he won't retire until after his replacement is confirmed. So the Supreme Court picks are nominations by the president, and then they have to go through the Senate, and they have to be approved by the Senate. So approved and confirmed by the Senate. What's up, Mike? I see you, bro, in the chat. What's going on, Kia? What's up, Sister Faye? What's going on, Danette? What's up, everybody on the YouTube chat? I see you, Darlene, in there. I see somebody else in there that I recognize what's going on. But the Senate and the Congress has to approve the nomination by the president, and then that person is then confirmed and then gets to go to the Supreme Court. So this pick is going to replace Justice Stephen Breyer, who is what you might think of as a liberal on the court, meaning he usually makes decisions that make the Democrats happy, if for lack of a better way to put it. So this person who is going to replace him is supposed to, and is thought of as being somebody who thinks like a Justice Stephen Breyer does, who thinks like the quote unquote liberals on the courts do. So what's up, Shanna? I see you. What's going on? So this is an important part of what's going on now, because there is gonna be implications for who's on the Supreme Court at the federal level for our reparations here in California. And if you think about what the Supreme Court is dealing with even right now, right? What's up, Reps? What's going on? I see you in the chat. If you think about what's going on the Supreme Court right now, the Supreme Court is going to be hearing a case on affirmative action. That case is probably going to be decided sometime next year in the spring or summer. Judge Brown, if she's affirmed and confirmed to the Supreme Court, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson would be helping to make the decision, I think, about whether or not any types of affirmative action can still be done or not. And that's important for our reparations claims, because what affirmative action is also about is whether or not the government can do things that specifically benefit one specifically identified target group of people. And that's at the core of what we're trying to do for reparations. So that is a very, very important job. That's a very important decision. And who's on the court between now and next year is going to be very, very important. So I'm interested to see if she gets confirmed.
Okay, that was a lot. Has anybody out there figured out this woman's lineage? I know she's Black. There was a lot of press about Biden picking a Black woman. Anyone?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I have, so again, I haven't put too much thought in this. And again, welcome to everybody who's coming in the chat. I see y'all. Come on in. We are here to recap this week's California Reparations Task Force hearings. We're getting the conversation kicked off with something very much related to what's going to be going on here for California reparations, which is who's going to be on the Supreme Court. But to your question, Kim, I haven't put too much thought into this yet, so I'm not sure. So if people in the chat know what is Judge Brown Jackson's lineage, what is her Black ethnicity? Is she someone who descends from U.S. slavery? Is she someone who does not descend from U.S. slavery? I see in the comments, Jeanette is saying she will be confirmed because her selection has already been pre-planned. Very, very possibly so, right? There is a lot of thought that she will be already she will be already, or she is very likely to be confirmed already. And but this is a interesting process, right? Because the president nominates somebody, so that's his nomination, and then again the Senate has to pick the person. The Senate has to confirm the person. And does the Democratic Party have the votes to get this person confirmed. It's an election year also. Keep that in mind too. There's, I think, 1/3 of the Senate is up for re-election this year. All of the House of Representatives people are up for re-election this year. So, and we've seen over the past 2 years that even though the Democrats have control over the Senate and have control over the House, they have problems getting stuff done even with their own Democrats. So will it be 100% that she's confirmed? Maybe. Is there a chance that she doesn't get confirmed or doesn't get confirmed fast? Maybe. Also, I see LD is saying, "What's up, family?" I believe she is from the Caribbean. That's something that I feel like we're gonna find out. We're gonna definitely learn more about her background and her heritage. I mean, remember this pick just happened in the last 48 hours. So if y'all have information about what her lineage is, we definitely want to hear from y'all. Yeah, you on mute, brother.
I am on mute. Let me see if I can get off mute. It's technology. All right. So since we got that out the way, let's get into what we're here for. Let's talk about the eligibility. And I don't want to say debacle, but maybe I'll say debacle. Yeah, the situation, what happened, what was it, Wednesday and Thursday?
Thursday.
Was it Thursday?
Thursday mostly, yep. Thursday.
Okay. So
Thursday.
Chris, you want to go in?
Yeah, so let's actually define for folks what actually happened, and then let's talk about what's going on now, and then let's talk about what's coming next. Before we get into what happened on Thursday, though, around the reparations eligibility vote, first of all, I want to hear what y'all think in the chat. What was y'all understanding, y'all reaction? What's your energy like right now? Where's your head at right now? How is your spirit right now with what you saw on Thursday at the California Reparations Task Force meeting, eligibility conversation, and then delay vote? But before we even get into that, I want to make sure we don't forget what happened on Wednesday at the California Reparations Task Force meeting, because we had some really good things happen on Wednesday. I feel like this week's meetings was like a highs and a lows for me. It was like we went up real high, then we came down low, and then we got our energy right, and we are, as my good brother Chad is saying in the chat right now, what's up, Chad? We are fired up and we are ready to go right on, and that's where my energy is right now too. But I want to hear from y'all in the chat, like, what's your energy like? What questions do you have too? Like, what are things that you didn't understand about what happened on Thursday? What is your energy like right now? What is your reaction? How are you feeling about what happened? But let's talk about Wednesday first, though. So Wednesday we had some really, really awesome things happen. Big shout out to my brother Chad, who is in the chat right now. Chad Brown, NAASD LA board member, CJEC member, NAASD national member of the board. Just an all-around awesome dude, one of the all-stars of this reparations movement since way back day one. Rider, warrior, reparations gangster, whatever you want to call it. I mean, this brother has been just a champion for reparations. So yeah, and big shout out to y'all in the chat. Keep your thoughts and your feelings coming. Yeah, how did you feel about what you saw on Thursday? Right, we got some awesome comments coming in. Kia, what's up? I was disappointed. Shanna, let that get you ready for this fight for our existence. Too much time involved to be a delay. Why is there immigrants on the task force? Poised with the power of authority in contrast to libertarianism and an American agenda. All great comments. Thank you for your comments. Yeah, keep your comments coming, right? What did you think about what you heard? So back to what happened Wednesday, though. So let's start Wednesday. So Wednesday, we had some amazing testimony, amazing recognition of two things that I want to pay attention to. First was the testimony by my good brother Chad Brown. Chad is in the chat right now. Please give Chad some love, Chad some hearts and some fires and some good energy. Chad's testimony was fire. Chad talked about the history and the current reparations movement and what's going on now with the reparations movement. And everybody here is a part of the new generation of the reparations movement, what's going to be the most successful generation of the reparations movement, the movement and the generation that's actually going to get us to the reparations in the end. But Chad had an amazing testimony on Wednesday. So I want to give Chad a big shout out here. And that happened on Wednesday. And then I also want to give a big shout out to Tiffany Quarles with our team at CJEC. Amazing testimony, recognition, honor for us as CJEC, Coalition for Just and Equitable California, myself representing here today, and then also with our amazing partners and our amazing crew and media arm, ETM Media Group. By the way, like, subscribe, share. If you're not like, subscribe, share. Big love to the ETM Media family who live streams all of these California Reparations Task Force meetings also. But back to Tiffany. Tiffany was the representative for our group, CJEC, on Wednesday and just did an amazing job receiving our honor. She gave a statement and an overview of who we are as CJEC and what we've been doing. And so I want to start with the flowers, because I want to give the flowers where the flowers are due. So big love to Tiffany. Look at this. I'm looking at your face right now. Big love to Tiffany, and again, big love to Chad. So let's start there. So now let's transition into Thursday. So Thursday on the agenda was the reparations eligibility discussion and then vote. That was the plan. The discussion started out with comments and questions from the California Reparations Task Force members, and there was some good discussion. To me, it was very clear to me, and I want to hear what y'all think about this, Kim and you, Moy. It was very clear to me in the discussion that there were at least majority support for the lineage reparations eligibility standard. From the comments that I heard from the chair, Camilla Moore, from the comments that I heard from Dr. Javon Scott Lewis on the task force, from Vice Chair Brown on the task force, from Council Member Monica Montgomery Stepp on the task force, from even Senator Stephen Bradford on the task force. There was, to me, just I'm giving my own general reaction here, just from listening and watching on Thursday in the discussion part. There was clear energy, there was clear approval, there was clear support for the lineage eligibility standard, for staying with what the legislative intent is of AB 3121. We had last month Secretary Shirley Weber come in and talk about what her legislative intent was. Lineage is the legislative intent. And so there was clear evidence for that for me. Just listen to the discussion. Then, as the mic got passed around for task force members to comment about what they thought about what's going on, then we had comments from Dr. Cheryl Grills, and then we had comments from, I believe it was Lisa Holder also, and then some others about wanting to delay the vote, right? So wanting to actually delay the vote. And that was a discussion that started towards the middle of the hour of the conversation around what the eligibility is. And then there was a motion, there was a effort to delay the vote until at least next month, March. So then they talked about delaying the vote, and then the motion happened. There was 5 votes to delay the vote, and then the vote was delayed. So I'm giving you what happened, just sort of like what actually happened, right? Then, as most of y'all know, there was almost immediate public backlash, immediate public problems, immediate public disappointment and disapproval. By the time the task force went to lunch, there was already at least 2 calls to action happening, and I'm sure we're gonna talk about those, but there was already at least 2 calls to action happening to put pressure on the people who were responsible for the delayed vote, and there's more coming too. So just starting there, giving you a outline of what actually happened. I want to hear from y'all though. Kim, you Moya, what was y'all? What first of all, what was your reaction to the discussion before the delayed vote, and then what was your reaction to the delayed vote?
Well, like you said, before the delayed vote, the task force members that you mentioned, in support of it, I mean, why didn't they just stand firm on their position and advance the vote? I mean, I don't see a reason for this delay. The public and the heirs to this claim are going to feel the same way in a month that they felt last week. So, what exactly discovery are they looking for between last week and next month? Do we know exactly what they're looking for?
That's a good question too. So one, it seemed like there's different answers to that questions, right? Because, and I was a little bit confused too. I was like, what? And actually, shout out to Chair Moore and Dr. Lewis, because they actually brought this question back around to the task force members. That exact question, Kim. What more do you want to hear? What more do you need to hear? And how and what specifically do you need to know more about? And it seemed like there wasn't a clear answer. I'm just gonna keep it real. It wasn't really clear to me what else they wanted to hear, what else they needed to hear. It seemed like, so for example, on the part of Dr. Cheryl Grills, it seemed like she wanted to first hear more from the community groups and like the community listening sessions, but I don't think that's possible by next month, because the community listening session process is going to go on for the rest of the year, basically. So if they are going to take a vote next month, which they have moved the vote from this month to next month, so there is going to be a vote next month. There aren't going to be, I think, any right now. I don't know if there are any official task force sponsored community listening sessions going on. We're going to do one on our own, by the way, on Tuesday in Richmond. So if you in Richmond and you in the Bay Area, come through, look on our Twitter, look on our Facebook, look on our Instagram too, and look on ETM Media too for the information about the community meeting coming up in Richmond. But there's no official task force community meetings going on there. Thank you very much. Right there. There's the information right there. There's no official task force community meetings going on between now and next month. So I'm not sure what that's about, how much more community input you're gonna get. But let's keep it real. The community's been in this process since day one. We've been at these meetings and blowing up the public comment since day one, since back in June. So there's been a lot of public input over 9-10 months already now. So there's already been public input. There was also an answer like, all right, well, we need to have some answers for the economists. But that's why I didn't get that either, because that's why you would have voted. Like your vote would have gave the economists answers. So yeah, I'm curious, and yeah, I mean, I don't know what you think about that, Kim, or what you think about that, you Moya, or what y'all think in the chat. Like, what other information do they need to hear? What other information? Okay, here's one thing. They were saying that they want to know more about how hard or easy it would be for people to prove their lineage. So they want to hear from people who do genealogy. They want to hear from people who do DNA research on family lineage about how hard or easy it would be to actually prove or not prove who is eligible. Okay, cool. That's something, but to me, that's something that you could have voted for the lineage standard for, and then brought those people in to then answer those questions. The answers to those questions are not going to change the legislative intent. The answers to those questions are not going to change also the best legal advice that you could find, which was, and we didn't say this, but let's say it right now, I believe it was on Thursday also, either Wednesday or Thursday, Professor Erwin Chemerinsky came in and said you need to use lineage. So the best legal advice you have tells you to use lineage. The best legislative intent advice you have tells you to use lineage. So that's what needs to be used. You can vote for lineage and then bring the experts in to figure out the answers to those questions. But that was another question that they wanted to hear something from, like how easy or hard is it for you to prove your specific lineage? Kim, does that make sense to you?
I mean, we already told them very easy. It's very easy. We have a plan with the census records and checking that. And like you said, that can be decided and determined after we decide eligibility. What else didn't make any sense is you need to decide eligibility before you decide your next step. So they were actually interviewing experts, these economists but how are you going to even determine who's doing what until we know what we're looking for based on lineage? So it didn't make any sense, and it just seemed like a stall tactic. And I think maybe it's in an effort to flood the public comments on the next meeting with Pan-Africanism, and they're probably sending in emails and calling up as we speak to kind of feign public support for flat blackness. I don't know. Seems like an op is going on. Op is underway.
Yeah, bro. Sorry about that. Yeah, bro.
All right, so
I think you're muted, bro.
I'm muted. Okay, I'm gonna get it together. So I don't think it's already been said, and I think it's been obvious that Dr. Shirley Weber already said what she said. So did you already mention that, Dr. Shirley Weber?
Dr. Shirley Weber said
Yeah.
what she said.
Yeah. Y'all mentioned that. So that's all I gotta say. It's a wrap.
Yeah, you know what? I'm actually in 100% agree with you. The author of the bill said that the standard is lineage. That's the legislative intent. There's actually language in the bill that says that too. Special consideration for those of us who are descendants of U.S. slavery. The only other consideration that we can talk about, and Dr. Weber addressed this too, is the descendants of the free blacks that were here before the end of the Civil War. So that's the only other consideration. And I want to go back to what you said about Dr. Weber, because Dr. Weber came to the task force in January, and Dr. Grills, who was the person who initiated the delay, and Lisa Holder, who is the person who, it seems to me, most clearly against the lineage standard. I don't know if y'all picked up on that too, but I get the feeling that Lisa Holder is clearly against the lineage standard and favors this race standard. And I want to talk about this question of a quote unquote harm-based standard too. I want to talk about that in a second. But back to what Dr. Weber said. Dr. Weber came to the meeting in January, and they asked her straight up, what about Black immigrants? And she said, no, this is not for those people. This is for my people. And Dr. Grills didn't have no energy for that when Dr. Weber was there. Lisa Holder didn't have no energy for that when Dr. Weber was there. That was the time to give all that energy when the author of the bill was in your face and you actually had a chance to actually question and make your case. But when Dr. Weber was there, it was real quiet. It was real. Okay, thank you. We understand. And then, if you remember, after Dr. Weber spoke, the task force voted to move the eligibility decision forward from what it was originally supposed to be, which it was in July. They moved it up to February because Dr. Weber was so clear. So they was like, all right, we don't even need to continue even going through the discussions at every single meeting. We have clear legislative intent, and let's bring the vote up. But then, as we mentioned, and I want to get to your question, which I see some questions in the chat. By the way, keep your comments coming, keep your thoughts coming. Also, the question for y'all in the chat is, what was your reaction to what you saw on Thursday for the eligibility vote, and how you feeling right now? Also, like, how are you feeling right now? But to the questions in the chat, and right in line with what I was just saying, they decided to then delay the vote. Yes, or not yesterday, but on on Thursday. So they're going to bring the vote back up on March at the March meeting. I want to get to this question in the chat too from the net because it's a good question. It said, do we need to include race too? I have heard some white people say that they can claim their ancestry back to an enslaved African. One white person questions whether he would be eligible for reparations. This is an important question. And this was actually addressed partly by what Professor Chemerinsky said about how we write reparations legislation so that it gets to the people who it's supposed to get to, but also doesn't get thrown out by no courts. And so the question to your question, Danette, the question is, first, we can't really use race at all. To be honest with you, we can't use race at all, because if we use race, the courts will throw out our claim, because you can't do anything specifically for one group of people by race. That's what the California Constitution says, and that's what the U.S. Supreme Court says too. So you cannot do anything by race. That will get your claim thrown out. And this is a challenge for us, because first, it's a result of what the country has done to us. They did something to us by race and by lineage. Right? They hurt us by race and by lineage. And really for the most of the history of this country, being black meant you was a descendant of U.S. slavery. That's what being black meant for most of our history, right? Think about most of our history in this country up until really the last part of the 1900s, right? The 1960s, 70s, 70s, and 80s. But before then, when somebody saw you as black, that meant you was a descendant of U.S. slavery. So they did something to us by race and by lineage, but over the years, the court said you can't do anything to correct any of those problems specifically for one racial group of people. So we cannot use a race standard at all if we want to have any reparations that actually happens and that we actually keep. And that's what Professor Chemerinsky said. But we have to use lineage also. That's the way to do it. But we are going to have to, I think, and this is what I want to get on and touch on, which is we are going to have to think about how we make sure, and this is to the next question, how we make sure that if we use a lineage standard, that only people in our lineage who are black actually get it, right? Because Danette's right. If we use a lineage only standard, you might have somebody who currently identifies as white say, well, I have an ancestor who was enslaved in this country, but through the years, I've come to classify myself as white. But if I have this lineage, then I should be eligible too. But if we don't use a lineage standard and we use a race standard, then we're going to have people who are black who don't have that lineage come in and say, I should be able to get some too. And if we use a race standard at all, the courts might throw it out. So we're in I said this on the Twitter Spaces back in, like, I feel like it was in January. We're in what I call, we're stuck between a rock, a stone, and a hard place.
Well, Chris, how have these white passing people been identifying on their records for, their life, and particularly the last 10, 12 years? Is that the criteria that Darity set out, that you had to be identifying as black on your papers?
That's Dr. Darity's criteria, and here is where we come to that challenge again, because white is a race, black is a race. So if we use any racial identity criteria, then that is going to make it so that the courts throw it out. And I'm going to argue we won't even get to no courts, because no legislator is going to even want to introduce any legislation that they know is probably going to get thrown out by any courts, even if it does get signed into law. And no governor is going to want to sign anything into law, even if they know that it's going to be thrown out by courts, or they're going to have to fight a bunch of court battles for years. So we won't even, from my perspective, we won't even get to any court fights if we use race at all. So lineage has to be the standard, but we have to have another piece. We have to have a lineage plus something to make sure that it's our lineage, but it's Black folks in our lineage. And this is where I think the concept of harms comes in. And I know there's been some controversy around whether or not we can use a harm standard. I think, and this is what I want to put out there. By the way, thank y'all for the amazing comments in the chat. Once again, let us know how you felt when you was at that delay vote, and I felt like somebody punched me in the stomach. You know what I'm saying? Like I was not happy with the delay at all. So let us know how you felt, and how are you feeling now? Right. And also, I want y'all to help us answer this question too. If we can't use race and we must use lineage, how do we make sure that it's Black folks in our lineage who get it? If we can't use race at all and we must use lineage, which is, I think we're pretty clear on that, because if we use race, then that opens it up to Black immigrants and to the courts throwing it out. If we use only lineage, then that opens it up to people who may call themselves white, but with one ancestor who was enslaved in the U.S. So how do we solve this puzzle? This is a puzzle, and so I feel like one piece we got to add to the puzzle is we got to have lineage, because that's the legislative intent. That's what's going to get us through the courts, and that doesn't use race. But then we also got to use a harm standard too, or we may want to use a harm standard. So if we do lineage plus harm, that might equal us, right? So lineage plus harm.
We have a question in the chat. How did the Japanese do it?
That's a good question. So the Japanese did it in a way that was for the Japanese folks who were interned. But if I'm not mistaken, and Professor Chemerinsky talked about this at the meeting when he testified, I think it was either Wednesday or Thursday, that their claim was based primarily on harm. So, and they had a specific group of people who were still alive who actually were interned, and they gave it to those people who were still alive who were interned. So that was only Japanese people. So that was only Japanese people, Japanese American people, but it was based on that harm. And in our case, it's going to be a little bit different, because one, we're talking about the descendants of those people. So we are talking about the descendants of those of us who have ancestors who were enslaved and overcame slavery and Jim Crow in this country. So that's us, but we're also talking about a particular set of harms that were done to this people too. And I think that's how we get to the answer and the solution to this puzzle. We have to, and I'm just proposing this, and I'm just throwing it out there for y'all. A lineage plus harm standard, I think, is the complete standard, right? We have to start with lineage, and then we add on harm, and that gets us to making sure that it's only us. I'm not sure if that makes a lot of sense right now. I'm still thinking through a lot of these issues, right? But I think the lineage plus harm solution is probably the best way to go to make sure that we don't use race, because we can't use race for a few different reasons. And then we use lineage.
Is Negro a race? Were we even identified as Black on the 1870 census?
We were called Negro, but those are racial classifications still.
That's still a racial.
Yeah, that's a racial classification. Yeah. So
what about the American Negro? That's
same thing from what I understand. And I want to hear from the chat too. And I'm looking at some of the comments where they said we must emphasize that we are unique people with a unique experience, and it can't fit into anyone else's categories. Annette, you're 100% right. Chad says intern Japanese Latinos did not get it because they were non-citizens. Speaks to the importance of exclusion. Absolutely right. My good brother, Cohn, I'm gonna mess that up, but I know who you are, brother. What's up? Kawanja 7. Wouldn't Darity have the answer? That's why he created the timeline for our claim. That is a good point. The issue is Dr. Darity's standard is a race and lineage standard. right? Let's look at Dr. Daily's standard. It's a race and lineage standard. You have to have at least one ancestor who was enslaved in this country by this country. So that's a lineage. And then 2, you have to be somebody who self-identifies as Black, African American, Negro, whatever you want to call it. So that's the race standard. So it's a lineage plus race standard. But what our legal advice is telling us is that the race standard, if you use race at all, the courts are going to throw it out, and or you open the door for non-descendants. So if you use a race standard alone, you open the door for a court to throw it out, and you open the door for non-descendants, Black non-descendants. If we use a lineage standard alone, we will survive a court challenge, but we open the door for non-Black descendants. You know what I'm saying? And if we use race at all, we open it up for the courts to throw it out. So we need an upgraded, evolved standard. And I think the lineage plus the harm, if we make those 2 have to go together. So you have to be of this lineage, and then you have to have been subject to a particular set of harms that we can identify. And I don't think we'll have trouble identifying the kinds of harms. As a matter of fact, I want to give a shout out to Friday Jones with the NAASD LA team and the CJEC team and the NAASD national team, who did a really good piece of public comment in the January meeting, listing a set of harms that the federal government and the state government did. And that might be part of what we might need to be thinking about in terms of, hey, like if you are of this lineage and your people back then were subject to these set of harms, then that may be how you get eligible. What do you think about that?
Let's see. We have a comment in the chat here, and it says chattel slavery in the U.S. That's the harm. You can't really get more specific than that.
True that, and that's where it would start. So I think that's a great place to start, right? U.S. slavery, chattel slavery, American slavery. I think that's one specific harm, and so would your people have been subject to that harm, and are you of this lineage? Plus, all the other things and all the other harms that both the U.S. government has done and the California government has done specifically too. I think that's a possible way forward. But what I'm trying to make sure that we are talking about here, and we are doing a real good job of it, is the fact that we have a challenge. And there's one other challenge too that I want to talk about. But we have a challenge that we are going to overcome for sure, specifically around what is the full lineage criteria. So we have the basic lineage standard. That is the legislative intent. That's what the best legal advice said. That's what the people want. That's clear. That has to be followed. I believe, as I said earlier, there were at least 5 votes, majority votes for that on the task force, and I expect there are at least 5 majority votes for that in March too, and that there will be. But we also have to fine tune this a little bit. We got to make this more clear, because we have, again, between a rock, a stone, and a hard place. We got, if we use race only, we open the door for Black non-descendants, and we open the door for the courts to kill it. If we use lineage only, we open the door for non-Black descendants. If we use race at all, we open the door for the courts to kill it. So we have to use an upgraded standard, I think, and I think the lineage is obviously the core of it, and then the harm, I think, has to be attached to it to make it so that it's Black folks. So the lineage stays the same. That's clear. So you have to have that lineage, and you have to be subject to this harm, and that makes it us. That's the first challenge. The other challenge. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kim.
Which group do you think has a bigger pool of people in it? The Black immigrants or the lineage white people?
So the black, so and so these are some new phrases we're gonna be talking, right? So we're gonna call them, and we're gonna call them whatever you want, right? I'm calling it black non-descendants and non-black descendants. So black non-descendants, and then non-black descendants. All right. So we are going to have to work to exclude, and I don't want us to be scared to use that word, to exclude exclude black non-descendants and non-black descendants. We got to hit that middle, right? So we have to work to create an upgraded, evolved standard that does not have in it black non-descendants and non-black descendants. That is, so which group of people do you think is bigger? I think I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, if you just look at, like, let's say the black non-descendant community, that is what we think, maybe something like 10% of the black population, right? What you might think of as black folks who chose to come to this country, who did not come from descendants of U.S. slavery, who did not build this country, then that is, I think, about 10% of the U.S. population, or the 10% of the black population. That's what I think the most recent data gives us. But I don't know how big the population of white folks who have one descendant in their ancestry. So somebody who is technically claims white now, but may have an ancestor that was enslaved.
Hey, bro, just real quick.
What's up?
Sorry to cut your wisdom.
What's up? 2 minutes on. What's up?
Instagram.
IG?
Yeah.
Do we really?
Yeah, you got an hour on Instagram, so you probably have to cut it off.
No, we got more.
There you go.
Yeah, we got. Yeah, no, the last IG live went 1 hour and 40 minutes. No, we good. We good.
Did it?
Yeah,
Okay,
we good. Now we good. Yeah, by the way, shout out to the Instagram family. I see y'all out there. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all for pulling up. Shout out to the YouTube family too. Appreciate the comments coming in. And yeah.
Okay. So, Freedmen's, is that a race classification, or is that a group of people identifying our lineage? So, I mean, a Freedman classification, would that take care of the non-black descendants?
So that's a good question. So there are people who know a lot more about this than me, and I want to give a shout out to the brothers and sisters who have been popularizing that and have been socializing that concept. And I want to defer to those folks. I want to defer to the folks at I believe it's the Sons and Daughters, or United Sons and Daughters of the Freedmen, and the Be the Power family. I want to give a shout out to those brothers. They would be more knowledgeable to speak on that. And so I don't have a direct answer or informed answer. What I would say is, to me, Freedmen sounds more like it represents a lineage of people. So it's closer to a lineage of people. And I think Chad says in the comments right there that it's a political status, right? And that political status refers to a group of people with a specific history. So that sounds more like lineage, right? So great. I think we are talking about the same group of people when we're talking about lineage. So those of us who descend from those of our ancestors who were enslaved and who became freedmen, right, after the end of the Civil War, that's our lineage. And the federal government, I believe, recognized us as a group under that status. That's my understanding of it. But that is a more akin to a lineage. And we are in 100% agreement that it is lineage. However, would there be, we still have the issue of the non-black descendants. So let me ask this: are there non-black freedmen? Meaning, is there somebody white who can say one of my ancestors is a descendant of those people who were freed? Same question we're having to answer right now too. Are there, and it's the same question, are there non-black people who will claim our lineage? I believe the answer to that question is yes. I think the honest answer to that question is yes. There are people who classify themselves as white right now who will say, I have that lineage. So the lineage criteria and the lineage standard, we are going to have to fine tune that too. But we also know that we can't use a race standard. So we can't say, so you see where we caught, right? Because we can't say, okay, then we're going to add black on top of it, so we make sure that it's black folks, because once we add black on top of it, then the courts are going to throw it out, and then you open the door to black non-descendants also. Speechless, huh? I want to get to some of these comments in the chat, because people are putting in fire comments. Freeman is a status, to my knowledge, right? Like immigrant is a status. It's a constitutional term. Shanna is saying a big shout out to Afro Empath Ascension too with the comments. Shanna saying it goes back to the criteria Darity outlined. Kwanja is saying I'm sure they would come out of the woodworks if they smell money, right? Big shout out to you, LD War. What's up? This is a question and a challenge that we're gonna have to answer, and this is part of what the task force is here to do. This is part of what the task force is here to help us answer. But we, I think, are clear. Lineage has to be the basis of the criteria, and then we're going to have to figure out these other pieces too. So we're going to start with lineage, and then I think add harm to it. That's probably the direction I think we're going in. Lineage plus harm, but they have to go together. Meaning, you can't just have a harm standard and then say, okay, I was harmed, so I get some of this, because that could go for anybody and everybody. But as we were talking about, we can't just have a race standard, because the race standard will get thrown out by the courts, and it's going to open it up for the non-black, for the black non-descendants. And then we can't just have a lineage standard, because again, we come back to that same challenge. So we're in the process right now of working through some of these issues. This is what the task force is here for too. Like, this is what they're here to help us solve. And once they vote in March for the lineage eligibility as the basis, then we're going to have to figure out the rest of these questions. There's also questions about residency that we haven't even got to yet. But I do want to throw out this one other piece here to y'all, this other challenge. And by the way, I want to thank y'all for hanging out with us. Appreciate y'all. This is a Sunday morning / afternoon broadcast, so I appreciate everybody's time. And thank you for pulling up and tuning in. Thank you for the fire comments. There's this other challenge and this other piece that I want to add in here too, which is, how do people prove their lineage? How are we going to ask people to prove who they are and what their lineage is? So first of all, I want to know from you, Kim, and you, Moya, and also from the chat, how do you know who you are? How do you know that you are a descendant of U.S. slavery? How did you prove that?
You want me to answer that? Okay. So, I mean, if you're talking about me personally, I mean, I'm fortunate because I have data that goes back to the 1700s. So now it's passed down through my grandfather, who got information from his people. So in terms of everybody else, from my understanding, there's an 1870 census that we can rely upon. And then there's genealogy work that I believe that the government should be paying for people who claim to be, Black American descendants, right? That should be definitely provided by the government, because it takes money, to do this research. So, I mean, that's just my 2 cents.
So you use census. So you use census records, right? Yep. You use census records, and you use the information that your family, whatever documentation or information that was passed down to you through your family. So census records, information from your family, and then you also said something which I think is key that we want to touch on too. And I want to hear what you think about this too, Kim, and how you know who you are. But the fact that you said that you want the government, possibly as part of these reparations, to put some money into helping people who can't easily identify who their ancestors are and what their lineage is. And I want to come back to that point. But yeah, like what do you, Kim? How do you prove? How do you know who your ancestors are? How did you prove what your lineage is?
I just really feel it in my bones. It's just been living life. No, but for real, I've traced my family back through genealogy to about the 1910 census, so I still do have some work to do. I'm not really particularly worried about it because, like I said, I've just been living that life. Back trips back south every summer to Louisiana, where my parents migrated from. So just and we have some land in Louisiana, so I really just probably need to check the land records to see how far that goes back. Like I said, I'm not really worried about it. And then again, trips to Louisiana every summer. Went to visit some fond memories of my Uncle Monkey's watermelon farm out in Louisiana, and they really don't get more black land than having
Shout
an
out to Uncle
Uncle
Monkey.
Monkey with a watermelon farm in Louisiana. So I feel pretty secure about that.
That's black descendant family right there, Uncle Monkey. You know what I'm saying? And this is an important question because this is probably going to be the biggest rebuttal question energy against the lineage standard, which is how many people are going to be able to prove their lineage, and what about the people that can't? So the question here for us is, and we doing political work, so we gotta make sure that we be honest and be direct and don't run away from no questions. What about, how many are there gonna be of black descendants who get excluded because they can't prove their lineage? So people who should get it, but because they can't prove it, don't get it. That's a question that we got to help answer. And it's not that's a question that is worth discussing. That's a question that the task force is going to have to answer, but we're going to have to help answer that question. Are they going to are we okay that there are some black descendants who deserve it that don't get it? And what are we going to do to make sure that number is as small as possible or zero? And I want to know, and let me throw the question back at the chat. One, how do you know who you are? How do you know that you are a descendant of U.S. slavery? How would you prove it? How are you going to prove it? Are you going to use a census? Can you have you already done it? Have you done your census records? Have you done your genealogy? How do you know? Y'all listening right now, y'all watching right now. By the way, shout out to the Instagram family too. How do y'all know that y'all are descendants? What did you do? What did you do to prove that you are a descendant? How do you know that? And then also this question of, do you think there are going to be people who are black U.S. slavery descendants that should get it, that have such a hard problem that they can't prove it? And what do you think the California Reparations Task Force should do to help those people? What can the Reparations Task Force do to help those people? What can the government do to help those people? Thoughts? I see a bunch of stuff in the chat here too. Let me actually get to some of these comments too. There's a lot of thoughts in the chat. So, what about census takers? This is from Cutting Heads. What about census takers who reported lighter shades as white? Self-reporting didn't start until after the 1930s. Good point. Kawanda is saying Ancestry.com is pretty damn good for gathering data. Mike is saying that part, Chris. Yeah, there are questions that we gotta have honest conversations about. It's not hard at all to prove who you descend from. Nichols is saying right on. A hired professional genealogist. Great. That might be something. That's something that came up in the meeting on Thursday, that there should be a partnership between the task force and possibly even the full state government to bring on genealogists, bring on people who can help people find their ancestors and put some money behind it, so people don't have to spend the time and the money to try to do that on their own. Annette is saying should be a process of elimination. If you don't have immigration papers, the assumption should be your ancestors were enslaved. Possible too, right? Maybe it's a if you are not somebody who is a descent who has any immigration in your history, then you should be technically thought of as a descendant. That works, but it doesn't get us that works to get us to make sure that it excludes the Black non-descendants. But what about the non-Black descendants, right? So there's two categories of exclusion that we have to think about: the Black non-descendants and then the non-Black descendants. So that gets us halfway there. But we got to think about, what about people who don't have any immigration in their history, but who descend from U.S. slavery, who have one ancestor who was enslaved, but are currently classifying themselves as white or something else, right? Keep going through the comments. Annette is saying that's a valid concern, right? Annette is saying benefit of the doubt should be for this descendants of slavery. Shannon saying, are we assuming the majority of that small group are adopted? This is something that came up in the hearings too. What about our foster care and adopted family? What about our people in those kinds of systems? What kind of proof are we going to be asking from them, and how are they going to be able to find out who their ancestors are? And again, I'm going to throw the question back to y'all in the chat. What did you do specifically to figure out that you are the descendant of U.S. slavery? How do you know who you are? How do we know that you are who you saying you are? What proof do you have? How can you document your eligibility? Yep.
I want to respond to that DNA. All right, peace, family. That's a very interesting question. Chad responded in terms of DNA. Shout out to the Universal Mike. He says the DNA tests are only as good as the data that the firms have. And let's face it, most of us have white DNA too, at least 25% on average. And then Chad responds, we should avoid DNA, in my opinion. I would agree with Chad on that. As a matter of fact, we should avoid DNA tests at all. Not saying that it's not good to use a DNA if you want to personally understand who you are, but we all know that race in itself is a social construct that was made by people who classify themselves as white and European people. So as far as that is concerned, just my humble opinion, we should not use the DNA test. So I just wanted to respond to that.
Especially since this claim is being handled by the DOJ, there's probably a lot of us that, just wouldn't touch that DNA, giving their DNA to the DOJ in the first place.
Yo, that's a good point. Like, that's another question. Who's going to handle the records and the research? Should it be a government agency at all? Should any part of the government be in charge of helping people figure out and handling people's documentation?
I think we need to start rolling out these freedmen offices. And, I nominate the city of Sacramento first, being that we are the capital of California. We've got this reparations task force, the first in the nation. I think that it would be more than appropriate to get a freedmen office bureau that could handle our genealogy needs. But it's something that, these municipalities are going to have to be agreeable to.
Now, let me ask you about that. I'm very interested in that idea. I think it's very, very interesting, and I actually like the idea, to be honest with you. But let me take the question back out a little bit. Do you want a government agency handling these records and this process? Any government agency, whether you call it a Freedmen's Bureau or a Freedmen's Department, whether you call it something else, it sounds like that might have to be attached to the government. So the question is, do we want, and this is an extension of the conversation that we're having, right? Because now we're talking about how people satisfy the lineage. How do people prove their lineage? And also, who is in charge of saying, okay, yes, these documents is right. You got the right lineage documents, and these ain't right. Do we want the government as a part of that? They're doing that.
I mean, I just don't think that we're going to be able to fully just aggregate from the government. So we do need some, we just need this information to be housed in the government. I mean, just like this task force that we're having, the fact that everything is going to be going into government record that's being presented to the task force. So I'm not opposed to that. But, this Freedman office, I would like to see something that is intentionally for Freedman, Freedman working in this office and Freedman having the influence over these offices, not, just some government office that's thrown together of their standard government type
people. No, that's a good point. And I want to let me throw the question back to the chat. So first of all, y'all know we are recapping what went down at the California Reparations Task Force meeting on Wednesday and Thursday. Thank you everybody for joining. Appreciate your time. Whether you just joining right now or you've been in the conversation since we started around 11 o'clock this morning. Big shout out to the YouTube and the IG family. Appreciate y'all. First questions we threw at y'all. How did you feel about what happened on Thursday for the reparations eligibility vote? How did you feel right then and there? And then how are you feeling now? And then now we're bringing the question specifically to you about how did you prove, and how do you know that you are a descendant of U.S. slavery, that you are an American freedman, that you are somebody whose ancestors overcame and triumphed over U.S. slavery and Jim Crow? What did you specifically do?
Quick comment on that. And okay, let's say like we don't even have the records, and I hate to be on GP mode here, but I mean, I think just as Kim was saying, I mean, innately you kind of just know. I mean, you just kind of innately just know. I mean, I know we need records behind it, but I mean, if your family, I mean, you just know, like if you talk to your grandmas, and your family and your kinfolk, and even I guess the question is if you are adopted or something like that, or grew up in the foster care, I mean, that's something that might be challenges for our brothers and sisters who've been involved in that situation. But even in that, situation, you actually might be able to find your birth, family if you dig hard enough. And I don't know. I mean, for me, I mean, if you just want to start from just ground zero, you just know, because I mean, most people, let's be for real, who are of, Black immigrants, and shout out to our Black immigrant brothers and sisters, have no problem with that. We're talking about specificity in this particular case. That you just pretty know you grew up in America, and you could just assume that I've been in here for 200 years.
I mean, in the same way that we know these immigrants that immigrated over here, and their parents and forebears immigrated over here, they know too. They know.
So I get it. So let's do some work. Let me play devil's advocate here. So we established an office of proving your lineage eligibility. I could just call up and say, I know because I talked to my grandmother, because my grandmother told me, because I just know, and they know. So cut me the check too, right? I mean, we are at that part of the, and big shout out to all of us, right? Because we fought hard to even get to this point, right? Before we were just having conversations, but now we really having conversations that are going to affect what actually happens in the real world. So this is an important question. How are we gonna and this is what the task force is going to be talking about on March, in the end of March, and throughout the rest of the year too, because they're not going to solve this question, I think, even in March. They're going to vote for the lineage standard in March and then have to come back and work out the details. And these are some of the details right now. And this is why I think at the March meeting, you're going to hear from genealogists. You're going to hear from people who can trace their lineage. You're going to hear from probably the economists again too, about how this is going to impact their work. So, but this is an important piece. How and this is why I'm throwing it back to the chat. I'm gonna come back to some of the chat comments too. By the way, I want to get to this question by Anthony, who says, "Why worry about people who can't prove their lineage when we don't even know who or how many actually exist?" So that's a good point. Well, what I think we want to do though is we want to make sure that we actually ask the question, because this is a question that's gonna come up, and that we actually have an answer to this question. And why worry about it is because we are actually designing something that's going to go into legislation. So we're going to have to absolutely ask this question and have an answer for this question, because we want to know how many of us are going to be able to do it. So what if I told you that it was 50% of us that won't be able to that don't have census records? Would you be okay with the lineage standard then? Only if it was only 50% of us that have census records, and let's say we use a census records proof. So you got to be able to put somebody on the 1870 census. You got to be able to pull your lineage back to somebody on the 1870 census, and that person had to be called Negro on that census. What about if 50% of us can't do that? What about if 75% of us can't do that? I just want to know. And that's why I'm asking y'all in the chat, how do you know that you are and in addition to, trust me, I got all the stories too about how my grandmother used to pick cotton. I talked to my mom yesterday about that. My mom said my grandmother and her brother literally picked cotton, come from a sharecropping background. So they literally picked cotton after the end of slavery. They were still picking cotton. That's my grandmother and her brother. So I got the stories too. We got the stories in our family. That's powerful. But is that going to be enough? So we call up the Freedmen's bureau here in California and say who's handling our eligibility process, and then we say, I know because I got a story from my grandmother, and that's how I know.
All right, our Be the Power fam is in the house here, dropping gems. The more likely those ancestors not named on the census will more than likely be on the Freedmen Bureau rolls.
I love it. Sounds good. I love it. That's another piece of the puzzle, right? So now it's census records, Freedmen's Bureau rolls. Okay. Now we got another place to put your claim in that, right? And another place to look for your ancestors. I love that. Brilliant, beautiful, right? Let's make sure we use that. Let's make sure we include that in what our answer is to this question.
Problem solvers, not problem distractors.
That's how we started, right? Problem solvers, right? And these are challenges or problems or whatever you want to call them that we need good answers, good solutions to. And that's, I think, another great piece to it. So let's say, and so right now we are talking about satisfying your lineage. So, all right, pretty much everybody here considers themselves a descendant of U.S. slavery, a freedman, American freedman, whatever your label is, right? So now we're talking about how you prove that. Officially how you prove that. So we got some answers about being able to use census records that go back to the 1870 census. I threw out 1870 because I think that's an important census, but the U.S. census, that 1870 census. Now we got that, and or being able to put or place somebody in your family on Freedmen's Bureau rolls. I think that's another answer. What else? I'm going to 9 nickels in the chat. I'll trace my lineage back to 1730 through census data with birth and death records. Right, hire genealogists. There's There's a comment from Shanna saying, if that's the case, adopted Black Americans should have access to these legal adoption records. Chad is saying, talk to your families, build out as much of your family tree as you can through the conversation with living relatives. That is the work. I see another answer on the screen here, right? The wills of the white plantation owners. Okay, that's fire, right? That's fire. That's fire. So now we got another place and another way for us to help prove who we are. It's the census records, Freedmen's Bureau's rolls, and now somebody's saying, look at the wills of the white plantations owners, because they used to pass us down. Let's keep it real. They used to pass us down like property. So look at the wills of the plantations owners. I think that's another brilliant example too. So if you can show that you are on somebody's will, somebody in your family is on somebody's will, or if you can show that somebody in your family is on the Freedmen's Bureau's rolls, and or if you are somebody that can show that you are on a U.S. Census records too, back to the 1870 census, let's say, then that should satisfy your lineage standard right there.
Hey, bro, what about I know they have some.
I think you are muted, my bro.
What about some of the universities and colleges? Do you think they might have some records?
See, now we getting a bunch of good examples, right? Look at them examples coming in the chat, right? So one, I think your record is right too. Colleges and universities. Now they may have some records too, especially if the college and university goes back to, it's an old college or old university, right? So it goes back to the Civil War era. I think that might be useful. I saw some Kim, can you put some of those responses back up? I saw one about the probate records. I saw one about the insurance records. I saw one. I think my brother Black Sea put one up too, right? Let me see if I could scroll down here too. There's a lot of great comments coming. A lot of great comments. So many, right? Mormons have Extension Collective of slave records too, right? So there may be some private or nonprofit, non-government organizations that have records too. Callie House was actually building a list of all the enslaved people that she worked with, that she came into contact with. Mary Frances Berry talked about that in her testimony, that Callie House was going around trying to put every descendant's name on a list, so that in the event that there was something, that there would be a record. That's absolutely, I think, something that we need to investigate too. Put that one back up to Kim. There was a last one that you put up, Civil War pension files. Okay, there you go. Like there's probably like already just in this hour, 20 minutes, we got what, 5 different, 6 different, 7 different types of proof. Yep.
Can I say something real quick? Just real quick. You might need to mute your mic, bro, because there might be some echo. All right, cool. So this program started off with Neely Fuller, specifically saying, when Black people get together, you need to be problem solvers. So I want to thank everybody seriously in the chat, for real, and the Instagram family for being problem solvers. When Black people get together, we need to be problem solvers. This is how you do it. And I just want to say, I really do appreciate. And, shout out to, I can't remember the brother's name in the beginning. You might have to rewind it, but go visit his channel. Neely Fuller, he's a wealth of information. But thanks, family, for being problem solvers. Brother, we got about 5 more minutes.
Yeah, this is fire. We might have to come back to this for sure. And to be honest with you, I have a very high feeling that we are going to come back to this conversation. But I do want to talk to the family about what's going on now. So we could talk about what's going on now. How can you take action right now about what you saw at the meeting of the California Reparations Task Force on Thursday? There's 2 actions out right now. They're on my social media, on my Twitter, on my Facebook, I think too. But no, sorry, it's not on Facebook. It's on my Twitter, and the links are going around Twitter right now about some actions that you can take right now to show and express your energy and your frustration and your desires about lineage eligibility and the vote that was delayed this week. And there's also something that I want to tell you about what's coming next. And I want y'all to pay attention to that too. But first, right now, what you could do if you are unhappy about what you saw, angry about what you saw, fired up about what you saw, then you can right now. I think we got some slides coming up. So for the Instagram family, listen up. Right now, you can do two things. The first thing you can do is reach out to two of the people on the task force who are the only sitting statewide legislators on the task force, and let them know that you are in strong disagreement and strongly disappointed by their decision to delay the vote on reparations eligibility. And right now you got numbers on the screen and you can call. I would make sure, if you haven't done this, do this tomorrow morning, Monday. Do it on Monday. The number for those who are listening and can't watch, the number for the first person that you want to call, Assembly Member Senator Stephen Bradford. That number is 916-651-4035. 916-651-4035. That's for Senator Stephen Bradford. The second person you want to call is Assembly Member Reginald Jones Sawyer. His number is 916-319-2059. That's 916-319-2059. Wherever you are, whether you're in California, whether you're outside of California, you can still make these calls. And there's a script that we have suggested for you on the screen right now. I'll read it to you. This is a suggested script. These are talking points. You want to include these in what you say. Obviously, let your thoughts be known. Do it in a respectful way, please. Do it in a way that is in a dignified way. Doesn't mean you don't have to. Doesn't mean you can't be angry. Doesn't mean that you can't be fired up and charged up. But let's make it productive. So here is the suggested script. Hi, you can put your name or not. Hi, I'm calling to express my strong disagreement and strong disappointment with the decision by the California Reparations Task Force members to delay the vote on reparations eligibility. There have been over 9 months of public hearings and public participation. The time for a decision on eligibility is now. And reparations eligibility must be lineage-based, specifically for the descendants of U.S. slavery. Please share my message with the member. Thank you. That is the suggested script that you use when you call the offices of Senator Stephen Bradford, 916-651-4035, and Assembly Member Reginald Jones Sawyer, 916-319-2059. There's another action, too, that we are encouraging you to take right now. And again, doesn't matter where you live, wherever you at, you can do this. I would make sure this is on your to-do list for Monday morning. Leave a message if you have to. If you don't get nobody picks up, leave a message. You can actually call right now and leave a message. But if you're calling tomorrow, Monday, when they get back to the office, leave a message if you don't get through to anybody. And then there's a second action too. I don't know if we have the slide for that, but there's a second action too directed at the governor of California to encourage people to show how disappointed and how much they disagree with what the governor or who the governor chose for the task force, because 3 of the people that the governor chose for the task force voted for this delay too. So that's Dr. Cheryl Grills, that's Attorney Lisa Holder, and that's Don Tamaki. 3 of those are 3 of the governor's 5 picks, and 3 of those people voted for the delay. 2 of the people that he picked did not vote for the delay, voted to have the vote this week. So I don't know if we have do we have that slide? I'm just checking.
I don't think so.
Okay, no worries, no worries at all. Check my Twitter, and let's see if we can get a link in the chat for you to call the governor's office too. The governor's office needs to be made aware of the fact that 3 of his picks voted to delay what's going on. But here's where you can start. Calling Senator Bradford, calling Assembly Member Reginald Jones Sawyer, and then also calling the governor's office, and we'll make sure that we get you a link for that action to call the governor's office too. The second thing I want to say that y'all could do, the next thing is stay tuned. Be ready for additional action and additional things that we are going to need you to do, and we're going to need to do for ourselves to make sure that in March there is a vote, and that vote is for the lineage eligibility standard. So stay tuned to ETN Media. Like, share, subscribe. Also, make sure you are following the CJEC Twitter at CJEC Official on Twitter, at CJEC Official on Instagram, at CJEC Official on Facebook. I think we're on TikTok too. I believe it's at CJEC also. So TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Make sure you are following. Make sure you are subscribed, because there is almost certainly going to be additional calls to action, most likely starting very, very soon, very, very, very soon, that we are going to need you to take. And thank you for the information for the governor's office. I'm actually going to pull up the call to action for the governor's office now. Let me see. Actually, put it in the chat. Thank you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen too. Actually, so I may be able to share my screen, because I want y'all to see this call to action for the governor's office too, because that's going to be important for us right now. Right, we need to make sure that we are calling the governor's office too. So give me 1 second here. I'm gonna pull up my Twitter. Y'all about to go into my screen and see all of my business, but no worries, because we are all working for the same thing here. So let me share my screen. Let me share the screen one time. Hopefully you can see my screen, y'all. Oops, let me share it again. Thank you for being with me. Share. And we should be sharing. Kimmy, if you could bring that screen into the live, hopefully y'all can see it. I think it is. You might have to put the other double screen up too. Okay, boom, there you go. So y'all looking at a whole bunch of stuff, and y'all looking at yourselves right now. So what up? All right. But you now should be looking at my Twitter page, and I'm going to open this link up right here. And Kimmy, you more let me know if y'all following. Okay, cool. Y'all following. I'm seeing it. All right, boom. So this is the governor's edition of the call to action. So the first call to action was reach out to Senator Stephen Bradford and Assemblymember Reginald Jones Sawyer. But next, we want you to reach out to the governor. And here's what we want you to say to the governor. So very similar. What's up? Hi, I'm calling to express my strong disagreement and disappointment with your California Reparations Task Force appointees, Lisa Holder, Dr. Cheryl Grills, and Don Tamaki, in their vote to delay a decision on reparations eligibility. There have been over 9 months of public hearings and public participation. This is an election year, and the time for a decision on eligibility is now. Reparations eligibility must be lineage-based, specifically for the descendants of U.S. slavery, as the author of AB 3121, Dr. Shirley Weber, intended. Please share my message with the governor. Thank you. Call 916-445-2841 and leave a message if you have to. There are 1 or 2 prompts. I think they make you press 1 for English and then press 3 if you want to talk to somebody or leave a message. Follow the instructions, 916-445-2841. Follow the instructions. Leave a message if you have to, but make sure that the governor knows that you are not happy about 3 of the picks that he made for the task force in there with respect to specifically to their vote to delay what the vote was supposed to be on Thursday, which was the vote for eligibility for who's going to get California reparations. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen there. This is on my Twitter. There's a link to it. Check it out on my Twitter. This is my Twitter right here. And again, stay tuned because there's more coming. There's more coming. So stay tuned. But if you want to do something now, call Stephen Bradford, call Assemblymember Jones Sawyer, and call the governor. There we go.
I think that's it for.
You are muted.
I think that's it for today. So we appreciate everybody being problem solvers.
Facts.
And yeah, I think that's about it. And we got the Tuesday. We're gonna be
And do y'all want to talk about what y'all did on yesterday too? In
I guess so. Yeah, Brother Burgess, Jonathan Burgess, and Matt Burgess invited ETM Media Group and some other media entities and family folk. People came out from Los Angeles, Southern California, the Bay Area, Northern California representing. So for everybody that came out, we might put up a little excerpt or two about our shoot up there and our tour up there that Jonathan gave to us, and it was impactful for me. And I think Kim could probably speak for herself, but I'm glad we went up and covered that story.
Yes, it was a tour at the Sutter's Mill, I believe what they call California State Gold Rush Discovery Park. Apparently 400 acres or so that was seized from the Burgess family, eminent domain, in order to make it into this park. And now we are looking at remedies to get that land back, just like with the Bruce's Beach land theft. So it was definitely a awe-inspiring moment. Taking a look back in history, learning about all the atrocities, and this is why we're fighting for reparations in California. Because a lot of people say, "Oh, California wasn't a slave state. Why is California even fighting for reparations?" It's just because they've been doing this to Black people, American descendants, since the beginning, the inception of this state. So they're definitely culpable.
Facts, yeah, and big shout out to Mr. Jonathan Burgess and the Burgess family. Matt Burgess, his twin brother. Sometimes I don't know which one is which, So big shout out to them, and big shout out to Kim and Umoya and Carol Tolliver, I believe, from our Bay Area family was down there too. Big shout out to Carol, and great appreciation for y'all for going down there to Coloma, which is a part of California that used to be owned by Black folks pretty much. And as y'all were saying, they took their land, so they're trying to get their land back. And also, I want to talk to y'all about what's going on Tuesday in Richmond. We're gonna be down in Richmond for a community meeting. Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. is going to be live stream right here on ETM Media too. So if you can't make it down to Richmond, pull up right here on ETM Media, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. We're going to be down there at Richmond's Rich City Gallery, which is a Black-owned bike shop in Richmond, and talking about California reparations. We should have at least one member of the California Reparations Task Force there. I believe the member that's coming is Don Tamaki. So big shout out to Don Tamaki for pulling up this coming Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And yeah, so that's what's going on Tuesday. And again, pull up live here for the live stream. I'm gonna pass it back to my ETM Media team here, fam, to take us out.
Say the last word.
Would just say to for the next upcoming task force meeting, which should happen in March. Chris, did you ever get confirmations on those March dates? Or
I don't think we have. I don't think we have any publicly confirmed dates yet, but it'll be in March. So stay tuned for the exact dates and be ready to be there at the March meeting.
Yeah, be there and be ready to testify. I would just, the only piece of advice I would get is, if you plan on testifying, call in early and get your hand raised early so you can be recognized. I believe that they were saying there were 27 people who wanted to speak that weren't unable to. because they just ran out of time, but they are extending the public comment. Is that going to be extended out a half an hour?
Yeah, that's a good point. So we thank you for raising that, Kim. See, this is why we're a team. This is why it's good to have a team of people here that work with you. Kim is absolutely right. For the March meeting, public comment is going to be extended by a half hour. That's going to start the meeting a half hour early. So instead of starting at 9 a.m., they're going to start at 8:30 a.m. in March to have an additional half hour of public comment. And that's your opportunity to get in. So we're going to need you there extra early on the day of the March meeting to make sure that our lineage, our claim, our position, our energy is represented through the whole meeting. I want almost every single, if not every single comment to be about us and our specific lineage. And that's what most of the comments have been for the past 9 months anyway. Like let's just keep it real. So yes. Y'all are so muted.
All right. See you later, fam.
Thank y'all for joining us. Appreciate y'all. Thank you, Instagram. Appreciate y'all. We will see y'all next time.
So if you were to bring the black share of wealth at least to the black share of the population, it would require an additional at least $10 trillion.